you all for being here. My name is Salvineda, and I am very excited to be here. I feel very sorry for whoever is responsible for studying or watching this later, because I'm going to be walking the room. So I apologize in advance. Okay, so how was the break?
Good.
Was it a little too long or too short? We're trying to gauge.
Just right.
It's fine.
It was okay? Okay, wonderful. So we are going to talk about this lovely iceberg. Now there are all kinds of really cool terms. We're going to focus on the one that is highlighted here that says values. Now raise your hand if you've heard of the word value. Raise your hand if you feel comfortable kind of describing it. All right, Sue.
Again. In-house sociologist.
Values are the things that you regard very deeply. Sometimes they're beliefs, sometimes they're based on knowledge, but they're things that you have a high regard for and that often guide how you interact with people and the world.
Well said. Thank you,
Wow.
Sue. Natasha, I saw your hand up. How would you describe?
Actually, I would ditto what Sue said. I think there are also things that your mode of motivation. So oftentimes how you are motivated is based upon your values, how you see the world, and that could be spiritually, culturally. So yeah.
Excellent. Thank you, Natasha. Anyone else want to add to values? All right, so my favorite word on here, can anyone guess?
Assumptions, beliefs.
Nope. Assumptions? Good. Nope. You said dress?
Language.
Okay, who else? Who else? Who else?
Architecture?
Dress.
No, language.
Custom. Art.
Values.
Okay.
Come on.
We already said beliefs.
Everything except
Art.
yes, inevitable. It's inevitable. Okay, so here's the thing. Some of us have a relationship already, so you know me already, and some of us not so much. So I'll say this: I have how should I put this? So I can be relative. I can be blunt, okay? And I've had to learn to soften the blow a little bit and do the sandwich effect and that whole thing, right? But inevitably, I offend someone. I hurt someone's feelings. I step on toes. I burn a bridge. And I hurt people. I have done it so many times. And I'm here to tell you, it sucks. It sucks. And you know what hurts the most is sometimes I don't even know that I do it. It takes sometimes for someone to call me and say, hey, we need to talk. For me to realize that there was something I said that was something to look, because I can have a fierce look at times that will offend someone. You're doing a great job, Domingo. I did not anticipate this.
Don't test me. Little squeaky here too. Need a WD-40 over there.
So, inevitably, we are all going to hurt someone at some point, and inevitably, we have all been hurt by someone at some point. Okay. Now, this is going to take some vulnerability on your part. Are you ready?
No.
Yes.
You're not going to share, so keep it to yourself. But do think of a time when someone hurt you. When someone hurt you based on how you dressed, based on certain assumptions, how they might have hurt you because of your values or their values, your beliefs, maybe even art, customs, language, or architecture. Think and put yourself in that space. What happened? You're not going to share. Okay? But what was said? What was done? What was heard? What was felt? What was seen? And I hesitate because I'm wondering, is this a safe space for me to share times when this has happened to me? So I need to know if this is a safe space for me to make this a little uncomfortable, but I'm being honest and transparent. So I know I can't get like a contract for you to sign to say, yes, I agree, it's a safe space. But I'm going to take a leap of faith. Put myself in an awkward situation where I might hurt someone's feelings. I might burn a bridge. I might hurt someone's feelings. I might because inevitably we miscommunicate or we discommunicate to people or we say things that is offensive. Inevitably it happens. Inevitably I've done it several times. And inevitably it happened to me today. So I'm going to put us in a situation where sometimes when we're uncomfortable, we grow. Mm-hmm. For those of us in the room who have taught in the past, first day of class, I would always say, if you are comfortable in my class, I am going to put you in a position. And it's unpleasant sometimes when we grow and we learn. All right, so the inevitables, differences in cultural values. The vulnerable space that I want to be in and that I want to share touches almost all of these. And I'm going to go fast, don't worry, we'll go back. We're also going to talk about communication. I'm going to show you discipline and education. So we're talking about 4 things: education, discipline, communication, and values. Okay. So, work and origins. Oftentimes when we're in public spaces or we're at a party or something, sometimes people don't even what do people often ask? What do you do? What do you do? I'm like, well, I hike, I salsa dance, I love to eat. What do you do? It's like, but it's a cultural way of communicating, because for some people, work, profession, career is a place of origin. My start point and my end point and everything in between is right here, is what I do. That's an offensive question to me. I hate that question. I dodge it every time, and I make it sometimes intentionally awkward because I want you to understand that is weird. Why do you want to know what I do when we're salsa dancing? Does that really matter? No. Now, if you ask me, what do you like to do? Then I feel like, okay, you're being genuine when I ask. Now, I know that there are times when it's appropriate to ask, what do you do? Right? But there are times when it's just like, who cares? Culturally, in some spaces and places, to start and end who you are with your career is the norm. In other places, other cultures, it is not. Who here listens to NPR? So a few days ago, there was an interview, and they were interviewing this man. I want to say Cameron, but if you've heard the episode and it's a different country, correct me. And the interviewer says that he asked through an interpreter for the gentleman to say his name. And so he starts his name, and he goes, like, forgive me, but I'm just going to throw out, like, very English names. So Maria, Anthony, Jessica, he, like, lists, like, 20 names. And so the interpreter knows what's happening, but the interviewer has no idea. Apparently what happened is that in his part of the world, you introduce yourself with your first name, you can do that, but then you list every single name of your ancestors, as far back as you can go. I thought, how physical is that? That's amazing. That is so cool. Can you imagine going to someone from his town and saying, so what do you do? How weird that would be for people from that part of the world. Personal control versus fate and destiny, that whole lift yourself up by the bootstraps kind of mentality is one way of thinking and one way of being, and sure, it works for some people. For others, it doesn't. For For others, it's if you're not getting better with me, then I'm going to slow down until you can help you. I can help you catch up. So different ways of seeing values, let's just say. Time and human interaction. If Beth was here, hi Beth. If Beth was here, she would have timed our break. 2:18. At 9:55, she would have been like, all right, 5 minutes, or 5 seconds, you know, that whole thing. But I think generally in this space, we were kind of intuitive, like, okay, it's kind of feeling like the space is all right. Let's move on, you know. So if I'm going to hang out with Beth, I know if she says I'm coming over at 6, she means she'll be there at 6. That's just Beth, right? If I say I'll be there at 4, I usually say ish, you know, to like, ish. There's some wiggle room. Is it a cultural thing? Is it because I'm Latina and she's white? No, I thought all Latinas were late and all white people were on time. No? Okay. Okay, individual versus collective goes back to this whole personal control and fate and destiny. And it's like, I can do it, I did it, I'm on my own, yay me, as opposed to, all right, let's work together and be more collaborative. All right, so here's where we get a little fun. So communication. Who here has lived in a different country? Raise your hand if you lived in a different country. Okay. So we know it's even within this country there are regional differences. Who here, so the hurricane that happened, that's called Katrina, happened in the state of Louisiana, and that big beautiful city in Louisiana. Raise your hand if you know which city I'm talking about. Mike. Read it.
New Orleans.
Okay. Sue.
New Orleans.
All right. Nancy.
New Orleans.
James. So on NPR yesterday, there was the mayor of New Orleans or something along those lines, you know, said, if you say New Orleans, everyone will know you are not from there. All right, so I'm from Chicago. My state is what? Raise your hand if you know what the state is. Melinda. Illinois. So it's regional even within a country. But in different countries, it's also very regional. So this example points to a gesture that here in the United States we refer to as like, yeah, good job, you did well. Japan, what does it mean?
Money.
How about in Russia? 0. All right, so I lived in Brazil. It's not the simple you want to do in Brazil, okay? It is not, all right? Can anyone think of another example? It doesn't have to be a hand gesture, but something that, depending on where you are, it differs. It's not, no one is right or wrong, it's just different. Natasha.
Today I was talking to one of our staff. She's younger. And I always say, okay. And she's like, do you mean okay? Or do you mean, like, what do you mean by that? And it was hilarious. I'm thinking, no one's ever asked me that before. I'm like, okay, do you get it? Like, I'm like, do you understand? And she's like, no.
Thank you. That's funny. Mike, did you know?
I guess I've heard that touching somebody with the left hand is not necessarily good in Arab cultures.
Yes. Actually, yes. And in certain Arab cultures, it is very rude to eat with a particular hand. Does anyone know which hand is considered the right one?
No.
The right hand
The right hand's the one you eat with?
that you eat with is the left hand.
Yeah, you eat with your left.
Use for other things.
Other things, yes. I didn't want to be rude.
Okay, so it's different. All right. Raise your hand if you drove here today. Oh yeah, drove here. All right. So which side did you drive on, Ben? Basil? Basil? Basil?
Basil.
Basil. Thank you.
On the right side, of course.
You did, but why?
Because if I went the other way,
Is the right side the right way?
In the US.
Here it is.
US.
US and Europe.
How about Australia?
It's on the left.
Is one right or one wrong?
Well, clearly, because one's on the right.
Yeah. That's Sarah. All right. Verbal versus nonverbal is a really good one that we can connect to our youth. So what are our lovely youth doing in this generation? And even adults, right? What are we attached to? What are we attached to? What is it? Don't be shy. What are we attached to?
Phones.
So many of us are attached to our phones, right? Now, huh? Oh, did you say something? Oh. What? In certain spaces, not necessarily cultures, it might be generational, it might not, but in some spaces, doing this when someone's talking to you or you're at the dinner table is considered what? Rude. Yeah. So see how there's no right or wrong, but it's just kind of like depends. Like, I love the rain. It makes me really, really, really happy. And so I intentionally will walk in the rain and like not use an umbrella or anything. I just love it. But at work today, people were like, "What are you doing? You need an umbrella." They're all people from Cali, from LA. And I'm like, "This is great. Do you guys want anything? Because I'm going across the street." They're like, "Get out of the rain." It's so regional. It just sort of depends. So, why do you think someone be bold and say, answer this. Why do you think we're talking about these distinctions for stars? Why does this matter? This isn't sociology 101. Why are we talking about this for stars?
It's all human interaction.
It is human interaction. What else? I just had a tutor help with homework in 55 minutes.
Noticing differences in each other can either affect you adversely or can affect you positively. And I think it's how you handle those differences that make or break a relationship.
Sue, are you looking for a job?
No.
She's a great mentor.
Okay, so you are bringing me back now. All right, so we're going to look at this. What was my favorite word on here?
Inevitable.
Because it's inevitable, right? We hurt someone hurts us. It's a whole dance, and Eric said we go back and forth, back and forth. And then this is what we see, this is what we don't see, right? Okay. And there was that handy dandy, forgive me. Beth, I'm sorry. Oh, there it is. It came sooner. Okay. So there are times when we come into spaces genuinely open, truly accepting, very trustworthy and like trusting, and willing to adapt. There are times when we come in that space and we are well aware. We did this training. We're good. I'm in a great space. It rained today, so I'm in a great mood. And then, boom, something happens. So Eric walked us through this, and what happens when we do this, and what happens when we do this, and that whole thing. But there was something that he mentioned that I want to emphasize. There are times when we do this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and then we go here. And what did he say? What happens?
Deepening relationship. Oh, we go back.
Again. It's a dance. So one issue is being addressed and handled and resolved, and then all of a sudden a new one starts, and it's like, oh, here we go again. Is it fun? Is it exhausting? Is it draining? Yes. Okay. So we might come into a space open, accepting, trusting, adaptable, and something happens, there's some dissonance, but the appropriate response is to what? Who can read the first one? Observe. So, observe. I'm going to observe. What's the second one? Inquire. What does that mean?
Ask questions.
Yeah, that's questions. Okay. Third?
Listen.
Listen. And fourth?
Initiate.
All right, so we're going to practice this. We ready?
Mm-hmm.
All right. I observed that the staff were introduced. Raise your hand if you're a staff. Okay, staff, stand up if you were introduced. You were introduced, yeah. Now I'm going to inquire. If so, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of us were introduced, right? Or introduced ourselves, right?
Plus Marianne.
Yes. Oh, Marianne, stand up. Melinda was introduced.
Yes.
Was anyone else introduced? Okay. Did anyone observe anything?
It's about half of us are staff.
Okay. Yes.
That were introduced.
Yes, that's good, Sue. Did anyone else observe anything else?
Smiles, friendly,
Smiles.
welcoming.
Yes. I'm happy to hear that. Okay, so now I'm going to inquire. I'm going to ask. Who here that's standing spoke? Raise your hand. Did you speak?
No.
Yeah. Do you remember what you said, Nancy?
I'm trying to remember.
Does anyone remember Nancy?
You talked
You
about
tell
the
about
food.
your mother.
Oh, yes,
That's-
yes. I talked about my mom.
So, did you speak about your role?
Just that I was executive director, but I didn't say anything about what that role meant.
Okay, take a seat.
Okay.
Natasha, did you speak? Take a seat. Domingo, did you speak about your role?
Briefly,
You spoke.
I spoke, yeah.
Okay, stay standing. Beth, did you speak? You did. Okay.
Yes.
Melinda, did you know? Take a seat. No, you didn't. Did you speak on your role?
Yes.
Did you speak on your role? Okay. So take a seat. Now we're going to listen. So my question is, I was uncomfortable. I'll be honest. I was uncomfortable. I was like, why didn't I get to speak? Why didn't Natasha get to speak? You too? I was like, what? But how come Domingo got to speak and Eric and Bethel and Kurt got to speak? So my question to you, Kurt, as you were facilitating the introductions, did you realize that the women didn't do as much talking as the men?
No.
Okay. So we're listening, right? Okay. So now we're going to initiate a conversation. Yeah. So as a woman, I felt overlooked. And it would have been okay if all the staff had sort of equal balance. So Eric did a nice spiel, Becca did a nice introduction, Kurt did some of an introduction, but I would have felt a little bit more like, oh, this is nice. Oh, and you did a little bit, you at least got to speak. I was like, how come? Now, this is just an example of the of the what?
Underneath. Oh, the inevitable.
It's inevitable. I'm pretty sure I offended someone by now already. 2. Has anyone here been told at least once in their lifetime that they've offended someone? If you've been in stars from 1 to 5 minutes, you probably have. I have offended so many families and students. I remember one time I said, you know, I really wish that I would receive more invitations to graduations than quinceañeras. I really feel that way. You know, like I was being very honest, and I said that, and I didn't think much of it. You know, I later learned, like, ouch, you know. A mom once called me, and she's like, you know, so, like, I really need your help. We're trying to, you know, figure out how to afford this whole quinceañera. And I was like, oh, really? Okay, she's a junior, right? Yeah, and we're so excited because she's going to apply to college. Great, where does she want to go? Oh, she wants to go up north. Oh, that's wonderful. What's the savings like for that? Like, what's your plan for paying for that? Well, we don't really have one. I was like, oh, what are your thoughts? And so I tried to do it gently, but basically I was like, why are you spending your money on a quinceañera? Like, you should be saving your money for college. I was so wrong. I hurt that mom. Fortunately, I'm comfortable with discomfort. Sorry, not sorry? I think. Now, for me, I've had to grow into it and be like, listen, I mean well. Do you feel like I mean well, Kurt?
Yeah.
I mean well. And with that family, I meant well. But I offended that family. It's inevitable. Okay, so we were talking about communication. Discipline. Now this is an example that I shared with the training we had previously. Raise your hand if you were at that training. Okay, all right. So I have a friend who's got a son who loves school. And at the time, he's in his 20s now, but at the time he was in kindergarten. And my friend kept getting this call, Dr. Reynolds, we're having issues with James, let's say. James is being disruptive, he's not listening, he's misbehaving, he's not following instructions. If this continues, we will need to have a talk, or, and it was ongoing, all these issues, all the time. Finally, Dr. Reynolds was just like, I'm tired of this, I'm gonna go find out what's happening. And so Dr. Reynolds shows up to the class, but very quietly didn't announce that the observation is happening. And then, what do you know? It's time, right, for her to see exactly what's happening. So the teacher sees Dr. Reynolds in the back and says, okay, I'm going to show you. So she goes, all right, everyone, would everyone like to continue on to reading time? And so, the kids start kind of like cracking up. They're doing coloring, I think, at the time. So, yeah, they start, kind of stopping, kind of not, but kind of yes, coloring. Okay. Would everyone like to start reading time? And so more kids kind of pick up on the cue. It's time to do reading time. So they start going to the circle. Would everyone like to go to the circle now? Wouldn't it be nice? So that kind of thing, right? And so James is just like coloring, right? He loves to color. So he's coloring away. He's doing all kinds of cool designs. And later, the teacher kind of goes, James, would you like to go to the reading circle? No? And the teacher looks. I'm putting extras, okay? but something like that, right? So the teacher was, seeing a discipline issue in an educational setting. Teacher happens to be white, Dr. Reynolds happens to be black. And communication, I'm sorry, I cannot stop seeing Natasha's head nodding. You're telling on yourself. All right, go Natasha, go ahead. What? Say it, get it off your chest.
You don't ask.
That's right. That's right. Natasha picked up on it right away.
She got the answer.
Yeah.
No, I really do.
Do you know, I use that. So my sister will be like, do you want to get here a little early so we can skip traffic? I literally say, no. And she goes, what? And I do that to her all the time. I say, look, you're asking me if I would like to. I am telling you I would not like to. If you are requesting me to be here 10 minutes early, then say so. Make the request known. I would like you to be here 10 minutes early. Can you do that for me? Yes or no. Now this actually relates very closely to stars, because in our feedback, when we did this training back in, just last month, some of the feedback was, we really want tips on how to discipline. Which is really interesting, right? It's we're not really like trying to discipline, but that was the main like feedback. Please help us discipline the kids, right? And so I give the example of Dr. Reynolds because I think it's so powerful because even as adults, we do it to each other. There's all this like, well, I'm trying to be nice, I don't want to offend, but could, and it's like, yes or no. Now, we all know this. It's what's the word when it depends? It's depends on like, you know.
Conditional or
Contextual.
Contextual is the closest, yes. It's like, you have to know your audience, you have to know who you're talking to, that whole thing, right? Obviously, like, there are times when you're like, when someone's like, would you like to sign up to work on Saturday? You know, you're basically being voluntold, and then you're like, yes, I would, you know? Because it's like, your boss is asking you, let's say, right? But with discipline and communication and culture and education, know that there are family dynamics that touch all of this. What do I mean by that? What does that mean? Family dynamics. What does that mean? Oh, I see Sue. You can, yes.
No, I mean, the one that hits me the most is actually the education, because I was thinking maybe I have pushed my mentee too strongly towards college, and her family, her parents have probably never graduated from high school, I don't think, and so she doesn't have any family reference point with regard to how the importance of grades and how it relates to college and work study habits and all this stuff. And I just see that that's something I had in my family. It was very college oriented, and her family doesn't have any reference point. And so with me trying to provide it, I wonder, am I pushing her too hard so that she feels frustrated, you know, or am I not pushing her enough? Because she's bright, but I don't think she knows how to study. And so I think there's an issue going on there, and I'm not quite sure how to address it. And I can't rely on her family. Yeah, you're right. It's all in there. I am trying to listen, I'm trying to inquire, I'm trying to do all those things. I'm not getting much back because there's no reference point for her to try to communicate, because she just doesn't have a reference point. You know, and so it is hard. It really makes a difference in how I'm trying to communicate with her.